This is Fox 19 Now.
The Ohio River is finally starting to fall a bit this morning, but it's still going to be over flood levels for the next several days. Last night, the river crested at about 60.5 feet, its highest level in 20 years. You're seeing that aerial footage right there. That's a lot of what we're seeing today. Good morning, everyone. It's 5 o'clock. I'm Jessica Brown. This morning, Dan Wells and Frank Marzullo are live along the Ohio River at Smale Park, getting a closer look at what we're experiencing. Good morning to you guys.
Hey there, Jess. Good morning to you. Dan and I are here at Smale Riverfront Park at the banks. We're in the Riverfront Garage. So this is the garage that is over basically the Moorlight House.
Yeah.
You cannot park in here today. You can see right where you would drive up in this morning into the ticket gates, completely underwater, Dan.
Well, and as we're giving people at home a look kind of at Mering Way and the Smale Riverfront Park, you're seeing about 75 yards of water covering this area. Again, this is the Ohio River cresting, as everybody has been talking about last night around 9 o'clock. This would be the remnants of it. Now, we've been talking about this water receding. That won't happen until the end of the week. So if you are making your morning commute and you need to be in the downtown area, do be aware a lot of these roads will be shut down.
Things improving a little bit. Now, when we say improving, you got to use that loosely. Look at this right here. When Dan and I got here about 4:15, we were still walking underwater right here. This now, well, the water is receding and you can see the pavement. So we're going to see dramatic picture changes here.
Sure.
As the afternoon wears on. But the issue that will be, Dan, cleaning up all the debris. We heard from county commissioners yesterday in that press conference at about 3:30, 4 o'clock, talking about even after the waters recede, a lot of the roads that are closed now due to high water will remain closed because we have to get the debris out of the roads.
Well, this is obviously something to see in person, something to see on the television, but there's a factual basis to all of this flooding, too. We have not seen flooding in downtown Cincinnati like this since 1997, and Catherine has been monitoring much of the statistical data tied to all of this. And Catherine, this is amazing for you guys as well.
Oh, absolutely. Flooding to this magnitude, is one thing to track, but then to see the pictures and what you're dealing with, it really kind of breaks our heart to see all the homes that are flooded at the moment. So hopefully we'll get you the information that you need to get through the next couple days, because we're going to continue to stay above flood stage here at 52 feet at the Ohio River at Cincinnati for, again, about 5 days. So we're going to see high water levels, even though those river levels right now are going down. We're sitting at about 60.2 at the moment, but we crested last night at about 9:15 at about 60.5. And Frank and Dan were mentioning how those are some of the highest levels we've had in about 20 years. We're dry. That's the good news. If you want to look for one bright spot in our forecast, it would be that we do have sunny skies expected today and a dry forecast for tomorrow as well. All that rain's well off to the south and east, and it's all part of that cold front that rolled through the area. And that boundary was the one that brought us that wicked weather over the weekend. Of course, all of that rain that brought up those river levels even higher, and those severe storms that we were dealing with. But high pressure is replacing that, and we are sitting right now in the 30s area wide. So it is a chilly start to your day. Right now, let's send it over to you, Rebecca, watching that morning drive, sponsored by Gerber Collision and Glass.
Yeah, and according to Cincinnati police, we're going to focus right now on the parking situation in downtown Cincinnati. Mering Way will become available parking there during the day on Tuesday, but it is expected the remainder will be unavailable up until late in the week. And we're talking about specifically all surface parking south of 3rd Street. This is downtown, underwater, unavailable for use. So you're talking about thousands of parking spots here around Paul Brown Stadium, along Mering Way from Central to Joe Nuxall. That is closed right now, and that's actually where we can find Frank and Dan, who've been reporting there this morning, bringing us a firsthand look at the flooding situation down there.
Yeah, and you mentioned Paul Brown Stadium, Rebecca. I'm glad you did. You can see Paul Brown right here and Mering Way completely underwater, and then that's stretching into that parking lot, the parking lot that's between basically Paul Brown Stadium and Carol Ann's Carousel.
Yeah, I mean, the damage down here that's going to be left from all of this flooding is very telling with these pictures this morning. We talked about the emergency declaration given by the state of Kentucky. The entire state is under that declaration. 17 counties here in Ohio that are along the riverfront are trying to get, again, some state and federal aid tied to all of this flooding. So again, the cleanup starts as soon as the water recedes, which is hopefully sooner than later.
And you're talking about, a damage to a nature aspect of it with the playground equipment and with the park equipment. Thankfully, it hasn't gotten into any homes here in the downtown area, parking garages and whatnot. But where folks are really being affected in the everyday lives, New Richmond, we're half of that town underwater, and that's where we find our Robert Guadarrama this morning. Robert, are the waters starting to recede there in New Richmond?
They are starting to recede, but as you mentioned, this is a very low-lying community that usually gets impacted by flooding. This time was no different. Take a look behind me. You can see this street we're on. This is actually Washington Street, where the water is up to the porches of the homes here. That pod's a moving storage unit right behind us as well. You can see how the water has reached the bottom of that there. But again, a lot of debris left on all of the streets here in New Richmond by all the flood waters. We are about a block away from the river. So I'm standing now in about 6 inches of water. You can imagine how deep it gets getting closer and closer to the river. There's kind of a slight downgrade as you approach the river there. But let's show you video, if we have it, from over the weekend. Some daylight video to really show you the impact at its absolute worst when the river crested over the weekend. We're told, luckily, there were no water rescues that needed to take place. However, several families did have to evacuate their homes. They're being put up right now at the high school. That is where the evacuation shelter is here in New Richmond. Again, a lot of cleanup left for these residents once the water recedes. Let's go ahead and send it over now to Jordan Valines, who's on the other side of the river in Kentucky. I believe she's in Covington. Jordan, what are you seeing over there? Good morning to you.
Robert, good morning to you. Yeah, we are here on Riverside Drive. So as you can see, actually in two different places, they have it blocked off, this portion of the roadway, due to high water. And I want you to take a look. I know that it's difficult right now for you to see because it's dark outside, but if you can see how deep the parking meters are submerged in the river, in all of this flooding. Again, right now, I would say that it extended several yards back from when I was here last Monday. My photographer was here on Wednesday. He also said at that point it was only the very lower level of the parking garage that was flooded, but that has now kind of since moved up, then spilling, overlapping into that second level. Again, still on the lower section of One Riverside Place, but that's affecting a number of parking spots right here just as the river has really continued to rise. So they currently have this portion of Riverside Drive shut down again due to high water. Hopefully that will recede throughout the day today, but for right now, a lot of it, parking signs, parking meters, parking lots, all submerged. For now, reporting live, Jordan Valines, Fox 19. I'll toss it back now to Dan and Frank.
And Jordan, thank you. And we wanted to come up high to give you a vantage point because we do want to show the good news story to all of this is the water is receding. I don't know if we can see right back here, Dan. You can see where that debris line is that leads right up to the intersection.
That's going to be the case for much of today. Again, the water not going away anytime soon. We're anticipating water in this area at least through Friday, but Frank has been talking about the good story. And that is certainly good news for people who have been in those communities affected, whether it be Covington that Jordan was just talking about or New Richmond, where Robert is.
Yeah, New Richmond, one of the hardest hit areas. We're going to go live here in a few moments to Sarah Selly, who is in Aurora, Indiana this morning. Sarah is showing us the story there where folks had to leave their homes. The good news here, I know we had one water rescue yesterday in Newtown. Remember, we've got our back tributaries and smaller rivers, the Great Miami and Little Miami, over their banks. We had one water rescue in Newtown yesterday, according to the police chief there, during that press conference held by Hamilton County commissioners. But besides that, no injuries, no loss of life in this flood.
All right, so much more of the flooding that has been the story here in Cincinnati for the past couple of days. Well, it continues on the Fox 19 Morning News, but for right now, we do want to send it inside to Jessica Brown with all of the rest of the top stories.
All right, Dan, Frank, thank you so much. We're going to continue to bring you the latest developments on the Ohio River. As we go to break, we'll give you another look at Coney Island here. Take a look at this aerial view. You might remember that was one of the first areas to flood last week, right along Kellogg Avenue. Now, most of it's flooded. Water levels are falling, though. It could still take weeks to clean that all up. We'll be back with more right here on Fox 19 Now. Yeah, so this is why we tell you not to drive through high water. Take a look at what's happening here. One of our Facebook followers sent us this video from Sailor Park. This guy drove his truck right through the water thinking he could make it. Well, he didn't. And now he's stuck, as you can imagine. Not only is that happening there, the water engine definitely ruined, expensive to fix. Not only that, it's illegal to have this happen. And police can charge you for it. Just there you go. Take that as a precautionary method there. 5:11 now. Sharice is following breaking news out of Brown County right now and Claremont County this morning at the alert desk.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jess. Good morning to you. We have a confirmation this morning from the National Weather Service that the storm damage reported in Hammersville and Brown County and Felicity in Claremont County was indeed two separate tornadoes. So take a look at the damage. Fox 19 now cameras captured in both counties. Okay, so let's take a look. This is in Hammersville right now. You can see there was some storm damage there. Obviously, very, critical as far as the winds go. Let's bring you on down there to that video that we captured there. Some damage to cars in that area. Fortunately here, we have not seen any damage, any injuries here. Now, this one is over in Felicity as well. They did confirm that there was a tornado that touched down there, that touched down just after midnight. Of course, again, this is all just coming down from the National Weather Service confirming that this one was an EF1 tornado. We don't know exactly the classification of the Brown County tornado, but the National Weather Service did report that they would be out there later this morning to figure out what that tornado will be classified as. Back to you, Jess.
Sharice, thank you. Let's give you another live look outside right now at Smale Riverfront Park there. Still flooded here. This is going to be the story for the next several days. The good news, the water levels are starting to fall. We'll continue to keep the latest here on the flood warning throughout the morning.
By Toyota, let's go places.
Yeah, and it's 5:16 now on this Monday morning. We're talking about flooding here. We're going to be under a flood warning for several days.
Several days, at least the next 5 days, we're going to stay above flood stage, 52 feet. And you can see as a result, we still have a warning along the Ohio River.
The good news, though, the water is receding.
Slowly but surely,
Yeah.
and we are going to see that happen over the next 2 days, especially because we are going to stay rain-free. Right now, we're sitting at about 60.2 and falling. Our flood stage, again, is at about 52, so we're still on the way down, and we did crest last night at about 60.53, and that was roughly at about 9:15, and that's when the river reached its highest. That was some of the highest levels we've had in the past 20 years.
By Toyota, let's go places.
Yeah, and it's 5:16 now on this Monday morning. We're talking about flooding here. We're going to be under a flood warning for several days.
Several days, at least the next 5 days, we're going to stay above flood stage, 52 feet. And you can see as a result, we still have a warning along the Ohio River.
The good news, though, the water is receding.
Slowly but surely,
Yeah.
and we are going to see that happen over the next 2 days, especially because we are going to stay rain-free. Right now, we're sitting at about 60.2 and falling. Our flood stage, again, is at about 52, so we're still on the way down, and we did crest last night at about 60.53, and that was roughly at about 9:15, and that's when the river reached its highest. That was some of the highest levels we've had in the past 20 years. So as a result, we are dealing with widespread, again, those flood concerns along the Ohio, and we are going to see dry conditions today. That's good news because we're still also cleaning up from this past weekend's storms. We had some confirmed tornadoes, of course, some very strong wind gusts, and all of that rain. And that rain was the main problem because all of it needed to go somewhere, and most of it right now is draining into our local rivers and streams, and those streams are draining mostly into the Ohio. So we have a lot of water coming our way, and we will continue to see, again, water levels on the higher end, but they're going down. We crested last night at about 9:15. High pressure's in control. That will keep us dry the next 2 days, today and tomorrow. Wednesday will be our next chances for some rain, and we'll break that down in a moment. But right now, we are sitting in the 30s area-wide, 32 in Harrison. It's 36 in Lunkin, 36 right now at Wilmington. It's going to be a fairly chilly morning, but as we head into the afternoon, mild temperatures are on tap. We'll make it today to about 56. Again, we'll see more sunshine build over the area with northwesterly winds. It's going to be a fairly pleasant afternoon, and then tonight we'll fall back into the mid-30s. Again, it'll be a bit chilly, but we will have clear skies and dry conditions, which is the nicest thing we have, I would say, in our next 7 days. We do have some dry days ahead. So tomorrow, also dry, rather pleasant. Daytime highs are going to make it to about 61. Winds are going to be out of the south. And as we start to kind of track that southerly draw, that's when we're going to start to bring in those rain chances. And you'll notice here in your 7-day forecast that we do have those rain chances starting to move on in as we head into your Wednesday. And I can pull that up for you here. We'll see daytime highs over the next couple days still on the mild side, but you'll notice by Wednesday into Thursday, we are going to see those shower chances quickly. Your 7-day forecast coming up here will be in the 40s and 50s by the time we make it to the weekend under partly cloudy skies. Rebecca, let's send it over to you watching that drive sponsored by Gerber Collision & Glass.
Thanks so much, Catherine. This is a view of I-71, I-75 at the Cut in the Hill. It's looking good for our northern Kentucky travelers right now. Volume is starting to pick up out there a little bit. If we can pull up my map so I can show you one accident we have reported, 71 south at Edwards. Now, coming up in my next hit, I'm going to tell you about the impact for our east side drivers because of those road closures and flooding. Beachmont, Columbia Parkway, Batavia Pike. You're looking at really needing to pack in some extra travel time this morning because of expected heavy congestion in those areas because of road closures. But in terms of the impact downtown, we've got Mering Way near Carr on the west side of 75 closed because of flooding. And then also near Paul Brown Stadium, we're talking about a really significant parking impact for folks. Thousands of parking spots are not going to be available south of 3rd. We're talking about the Banks, Longworth Hall, and that is where Frank and Dan are downtown trying to see the impact of all this flooding for themselves. Let's turn it over now to them.
Yeah, Rebecca, thanks. And you can see right behind us, Dan, Mering Way leading to those parking facilities completely underwater.
Well, and the thing Rebecca mentioned was between Paul Brown Stadium and Great American Ballpark. I mean, it's underwater at this point. The good news, the water is receding slow but sure.
Yeah, it is receding a bit here. As you look down along Mering Way, you can see we're starting to see it pull back just a bit. But we want to go live this morning out to the west, where our Sarah Selly has been in Aurora, Indiana.
Sarah, good morning to you. What are you seeing at this hour?
Well, good morning to you. Yes, I'm here in Aurora, Indiana, which is one of the many smaller communities that have been badly affected by this flooding. Okay, I want you to see this. You were talking about water receding. This is what we believe to be the line. Here, we're just going to show it to you. This is like the debris line of where the water came up at its highest. And so we can step now about 2.5 feet, maybe 3 feet or so back, and the water line is at this point right here. So that kind of gives you an idea that there has been some pullback from the highest point of the high water here in Aurora, but they've still got a lot of problems this morning. As you can see, the signs over here, they say high water. They don't want folks driving through this area. We're not going to really wade out into this, maybe step out a little bit just to show you it does get quite deep. There's a lot of water that is in this area. We're about a block from the bank of the Ohio River in Indiana. And as you can see, it's affected a lot of the businesses. That Marathon station still underwater at this point, along with that heating and air conditioning business. There's a car business right there in that other area that does car repairs, truck sales, things like that. Also, Art Angels, pretty affected by this. And then the entrance here to Tandy's Deli and Bakery, still very flooded at this point. We're going to continue to watch this and monitor this, but it's a good example of what some of our smaller communities across the area are dealing with, all the way from the northern part of our viewing area, the very outside part, all the way down to the Louisville area. Many of those communities along the river affected by this flood. Back to you.
Well, Sarah, thank you. And affecting parking facilities in the downtown area, we are in the garage here. This is the Smale Riverfront parking garage, and you can see the water coming right up to the top of my boots here. This is pretty deep, and it extends all the way back in. This is the garage that goes underneath the current at the Banks, the garage that goes underneath, Dan, the Moorline Logger House, and the new AC Marriott Hotel. Of course, all those facilities just fine. They're well above the water line.
And the second part of this story is going to be the damage. Now, of course, this was kind of built for, water. Right. We're talking about homes and people's businesses and other parts where Sarah was in Aurora, also in New Richmond, that were not built for this amount of water. So
absolutely.
The secondary part of this story will be damage on, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Well, and even as this water recedes, and you can see here, if you look at a little bit of the higher ground there, you can see how the water is pulling itself back. But the problem is going to be, Dan, the debris that's underneath it, and that's going to lead to another day or two of cleaning up.
Yeah, with all of that said, we're committed to being down here for all morning, just giving you guys a look at how much is going on in the downtown area, whether it be the water, whether it be the recession of that water and the damage left behind. So we'll be out here all morning long giving you the latest.
In the meantime, we'll go back into a dry studio there in Queensgate.
You know, it's unbelievable. That's the parking lot, guys. Thanks so much. So many of you guys at home have been sending us your pictures of the flooding in your neighborhoods. So these are just some of the ones we have right up right now on Fox19now.com. Yeah, some of us, this is from Clint here. That looks like a football stadium. Can't even see it there. You can keep sending them to us through our Fox19 Now mobile app. Just click submit and pick the pics and video you want to send in. Well, weeks of rain caused this big mess in Mount Adams. Take a look at this video here. A landslide shut down a part of Martin Drive for most of the day. You can see the entire hillside turned into a sloppy mess because it's so saturated there. Crews finally cleared enough of it to get to the road and reopen it last night. Now, the big story back here is flooding throughout the tri-state. Here's some aerial footage of what we're seeing all over. We've already seen buildings, parks, roads completely swallowed by water. Dan and Frank are leading our coverage live from the riverfront this morning with reporters all over the tri-state. We'll bring you the latest next.
This is Fox 19 Now.
Time now, 5:31. The Ohio River is starting to fall, but we are going to stay under a flood warning for most of the week. Check out this view over Coney Island here, completely flooded. Once the water goes down, cleanup, though, could take weeks. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jessica Brown. We're going to have a look at your weather and traffic in just a moment. But first, Dan Wells and Frank Marzullo are leading our team coverage of the flooding. They're live this morning at Smale Riverfront Park. And, I mean, it's unbelievable to see. Good morning, guys.
It really is, Jess. And you know, Dan, we were talking 20 years ago, the river has not been this high in 20 years. We didn't have this development. We're here at the playground area of Smale Riverfront Park, which is completely underwater.
Yeah, well underwater. You know, you come down here, and I think the novelty of seeing the water this high is something, but then you also see the secondary impact of all of this damage. And Dale, if you can kind of swing around and show them, the thing about this, water is so destructive. And as you can kind of check out, it's moving so quickly, even at this hour. So again, I mean, it topped out, what, Frank,
60.5 feet.
Yeah.
And this is the Ohio River that is over its banks right into the park. You see those lights out on the farthest tier of lights? That's where you still would have a drop-off. So this has led right up to the slides. I want to tell you, Dale is safe. We are using, we're right here. We're using the Roebling suspension bridge, the brick mortars here. So there's no current pushing us right here. So everybody's safe. But we wanted to get you right there at the level of the river to show you how strong the magnitude of this is.
Well, and Frank said we haven't seen this in our area since 1997. Because of that, you know, the governor of Ohio has declared 17 states of emergency in the counties that basically border up to the Ohio River. In Kentucky, the entire state has declared a state of emergency tied to all of this water.
On our walk over here, we noticed a lot of debris now in the roadways. That's going to be the secondary story as the water recedes. When is the water going to recede? It's receding now, but when do we get back below stage? Well, Catherine Bodak has all of that and your Monday morning forecast back in our Queensgate studios. Catherine?
Thank you, Dan and Frank. We are going to see the water levels continue to go down as we head into the next couple days. We're going to go below flood stage 52 feet in the next 5 days, or we're going to stay above, I should say, 52 feet for the next 5 days. So as a result, this flood warning is going to continue pretty much for the entire work week. We do have some rain chances, though, as we head toward your Wednesday. So let me take you right now to our current readings. We do have 68.1 as the updated number as of 5 a.m. So these river levels are going down. We will see today, though, dry conditions. So that's good news as we watch those water levels again recede. But we did crest last night, 9:15 at about 60.53, some of the highest levels we've seen in about 20 years. But again, our saving grace, if you will, for the next couple days will be that we do have dry conditions. Our next chances for rain won't arrive until Wednesday. The system that brought us all of that wet weather now off to the south and east of us is part of a cold front now. We are going to see dry conditions take over, high pressure building overhead, and that's going to also lead to some mild temperatures as we head into this afternoon's forecast. Back over to you.
Hey, thank you so much, Catherine. Talking about the travel impacts for you. We do have a new road closure reported because of flooding, and this is Reading Road between Summit and Sunnybrook. You're talking about a road closure because of flooding. Definitely want to pack in some extra travel time, especially if you're out there on the east side around Anderson Township, or if you use Columbia Parkway, Beachmont, Batavia Pike, because we do have road closures associated with flooding. We're going to continue to track the situation all morning long and let you know about possible detours and how to best get around this situation. Let's bring up our live camera and show you a nice shot of the cut in the hill at 7175 in the north and southbound directions. Looks like things are definitely picking up out there for us this morning. Let's send now to Frank and Dan.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We're down here at Smale Riverfront Park. I mean, between the two stadiums, Paul Brown Stadium and Great American Ballpark. As you can see right here, much of it well underwater, tied to the Ohio River flooding that we have been seeing for about the past, 5 days now.
Yeah, and what really is telling to me is when we do that camera turn right there, I mean, you're not looking down in a river. We literally, Smale Riverfront Park is a water park here this morning as the river continues to head downstream. We want to go, and we probably could see her right there somewhere over on Riverside Drive, or Jordanville Lines on the other side of the river as northern Kentucky dealing with flooding that we have not seen in 20 years. Jordan?
Frank, Dan, good morning to you. Well, I really want to show you all this. So when we got here around 4 a.m. this morning, we're here along Riverside Drive, just like Frank said. But when we got here, this is the water level where it was at. So now you can see kind of what is left behind, because even in the hour and a half that we have been here, the water has since receded. So we're not talking about that much. I mean, what? A couple of feet, I would say about 3 feet here that we're looking at. But, you know, that's really what we're seeing at the top of it here is what we're kind of need to be worried about. All of this debris, all the thickness of these leaves mixed with the mud that's now caking the sidewalk here on Riverside Drive. But you can still see there's a long way to go before this is back to normal. We're still talking about parking meters that are underwater, halfway underwater, and this extends on. I mean, for me to actually show you the depth of this, I'd probably have to be in a lifeboat of some kind or a canoe, because honestly, it really does extend that far out. But again, since we have been here in the past hour and a half, it's already receded a couple of feet. Certainly good news, but what we're seeing left behind with the leaves and mud, not good news. That's what's happening on this side of the river. I do now want to toss it to our Robert Guadarrama. He's joining us from New Richmond this morning. Robert, what are you seeing there?
Jordan, good morning to you. New Richmond hit pretty hard over the weekend by the flooding. It's a very low-lying community here right along the river. We are here on Western Avenue, where you can see behind me. Look at this stop sign, just how deep the water is right there. You can see how far up the water is on that pole. Again, if we kind of do a pan across what we're seeing here, a lot of standing water right now and a lot of debris left behind by the flooding over the weekend. Let's show you video from over the weekend. It kind of paints a better picture with the daylight. You can see the true impact of the flooding on this community. We're told that there had to be evacuations over the weekend as the river continued to rise. Luckily, only several families had to leave their homes. The evacuation center right now at the high school here in New Richmond. We're told by the city administrator here that luckily there were no water rescues that had to happen. So that's the good news, is that everyone's doing okay. But of course, a big mess left out here for residents. All this debris that is left behind that was washed onto their streets by the flooding. For now, we're live here in New Richmond. I'm Robert Guadarrama. Let's send it back over to Frank and Dan.
Robert, thank you so much. We're in the water here at Smale Riverfront Park.
And your
this
boots
morning.
are a little higher than mine, Dan,
Oh,
so
gosh.
I'm standing back here.
All right, bud.
Go ahead, big guy.
No, I was going to say, this is basically what you see when you come down here. You know, when we get some morning light, you're going to get a better vantage of just how destructive this water has been. But our coverage will continue of all of this as the morning does go along.
And that's one of the things, Dan, you know, you take a step to the right, step to the left, you don't know. Things could be a little bit deeper. So we are here along Smale Riverfront Park. Jess, we'll go back inside to you.
Thanks so much, guys. We're going to continue to bring you the latest developments on the Ohio River. Let's give you some video right now, though, from Aurora, Indiana. Take a look at this here. Businesses and residents have been affected by the flooding. Residents say they've been comparing this flooding to the flood of 1997, even though these floodwaters are not as high.
Fox 19 Now never stops. Take us with you wherever you go. Log on to Fox19Now.com and download the Fox 19 Now app. Donate your car to St. Vincent de Paul and help struggling families across Cincinnati. St. Vincent de Paul, neighbors helping neighbors.
The view of our Sky Fox 19 drone that had over the Ohio River yesterday, you can really get a good idea of what we're dealing with when we're talking about the flooding. The river reached its highest point in 20 years, more than 60 feet. The water levels are starting to fall now, but our flood warning is still in effect for several days. Now, we're going to have more on the flooding in just a moment, but first, Sharice is following breaking news out of Texas this morning from the Alert Desk. What do you know?
Hi, good morning to you, Jessica. I have some shocking video came across this morning out of Houston, Texas. Now, this is where an apartment fire destroyed a building. Take a look. Very shocking video here. While short, it's very effective. What we're learning from our affiliates is that this large apartment fire was called in about 2:30 this morning at the Cornerstone Village Apartments. Right now, there are reports of people being rescued from those burning units. We don't know if there have been any injuries reported, but at last check, firefighters are still on scene working to put out that fire. Jessica, back to you.
All right, Sharice, thanks so much. All right, let's get you back outside for another look at the Ohio River here. A live look at Smale Riverfront Park here. The flooding is unbelievable. Dan and Frank are leading our coverage this morning, and we'll have the latest next.
Fox 19 Now First Alert Weather is sponsored by Toyota. Let's go places.
5:46 now. I want to give you perspective about the flooding we're seeing across the tri-state. This is in Aurora, Indiana. Businesses, residents affected by the flooding here.
And I'll step
That's a gas station there.
You can see the IGA sign and even a little bit of fog kind of rolling across the top of that water.
That's what we're seeing in several parts of the tri-state, from Indiana to Kentucky to Cincinnati.
It's really unfortunate. We do have dry days, though, for the next 2 afternoons, so that will kind of help us out. But we are going to track some rain chances on Wednesday. So we'll talk about that, and we'll also talk about where we're sitting right now, current levels along the Ohio River. We have right now about 60.1. That's our current stage. But we crested last night at about 9:15 at about 60.5, highest level in about 20 years. So as a result, we're dealing with flooding, of course, road closures, and unfortunately property damage. A flood warning continues along the Ohio River here for the next several days. In fact, we're expected to stay above flood stage, 52 feet, for the next 5 afternoons. So we'll be tracking again high water, still above flood stage, but slowly receding. And by the time we make it to this weekend, hopefully those levels will be below flood stage. And we do have right now those dry conditions that will help us out as we head into this afternoon and even for tomorrow as we track sunny skies. But we do have rain that will move back into our forecast by the time we make it to the middle of this week. It's as another boundary moves on through, but we do have high pressure building overhead, which will deliver a dry forecast today. That area of low pressure and an associated cold fronts well off to the east, and that's what brought us all of that rain over the weekend. Some areas upwards to about 3 inches locally. And for us today, we are going to stay dry. Sunny skies, temperatures mild. We'll make it to the mid-50s this afternoon. And we are going to be watching temperatures tonight fall into the 30s. So another chilly night. It's kind of chilly out there right now, I'm sure you've noticed. We are going to have tomorrow, though, another mild afternoon. We'll rebound back into the low 60s. So it will be fairly mild as we head into tomorrow's forecast as well. We'll see sunny skies again, and we'll be tracking more of a southerly wind component here over the next couple days, especially after tomorrow, and that will usher in that Gulf moisture. Of course, that'll bring us those rain chances, and we'll see that arrive by Wednesday into Thursday, even for your Friday, mostly during the morning hours, but those showers end just in time for the weekend, and we do have those temperatures otherwise looking still fairly mild. 46 is the average, so we're above that pretty much all week long as we slowly but surely dry out. Let's send it over to you, Rebecca, watching that morning drive, sponsored by Gerber Collision and Glass.
Thank you, Catherine. And we have been online watching just some of the devastation caused by this flooding to tri-state communities. Within the city, in terms of the biggest travel impact we're expecting to see today, really out there concentrated to our east side around Anderson Township, Batavia Pike, Columbia Parkway, Beachmont. You're expected to see some heavy congestion because of people trying to get around, especially a lot of closures on Kellogg. That's where we've seen the most impact in terms of flooding and subsequent road closures. This one from 275 to 4 Mile, really off and on all the way up through about Delta Wilmer. And Worcester from Beachmont to Red Bank is also closed. And police say that they will have these areas open in terms of the morning rush. Sutton, Salem, Apple Hill, if you happen to go around that area to get to where you need to go in the morning. But to really expect your evening commute could potentially last past 7 o'clock because of the situation over here on the east side and all the road closures. But monitoring the situation downtown and the flooding impact it's having there, let's send it out now to Dan and Frank.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. You know what? We are talking about all of that water between the two stadiums, Paul Brown Stadium and Great American Ballpark. We're at Smale Riverfront Park, which is in fact exactly what its name indicates, riverfront, because as you can see, all of this flooding has brought water up into the parking garages, up past where its typical boundaries are. Now, the river usually is about 75 yards away from where we are right now, but we are just inundated with water. The good story this morning, this water is receding. It will be continuing to do that for the next several days. You know, in the downtown area, roads have been affected, parking has been affected, but it's those outlying communities where homes and businesses are still well underwater. And Fox 19 Now's Sarah Sully is in Aurora, Indiana, giving you the first-hand look at all of that damage there. Good morning, Sarah.
Well, good morning to you, Dan. And I am standing in what is by far the worst damage in Aurora, Indiana, and the worst example of the kind of flooding that they've been dealing with. So here you can see a high water sign, but you know, it's very obvious because this water is pretty heavy in this area. Let's just kind of step out here. This is the edge of a parking lot for the IGA that is in the downtown Aurora area. It's about a block or so in from the riverfront itself. But you know, as we get out here, it gets pretty high. I'm not going to go out too far, but you can kind of tell as I'm getting out here, it's starting to get to about mid-calf and get a little bit higher than that. And they don't want folks driving in this area because of that. And so they've got this all blocked off. But this is by far the worst damage for Aurora, Indiana. Some of these businesses very greatly affected by this. Check it out. You can see over here, this marathon station is completely submerged in water. It's closed at this point, and who knows when they'll be able to reopen. We've also got an air conditioning business and a car, truck sales, auto store business. Those things have been impacted, along with right across from the IGA, there's another small business there. And this extends all the way down to the riverfront itself. So this gives you an idea of just how high the water has gotten in many of our smaller communities that line the riverfront and line the Ohio River. It's kind of eerie this morning as you take a look out here live because we've been watching a significant amount of fog roll off of this water as the temperature has changed and we've gotten into kind of the early morning hours. And that's kind of made a really strange sight, something you would just normally not see in Aurora, Indiana, but all of it as a result of this very significant flooding and this historic event here in this area. Back to you.
Sarah, thanks. And we have not seen water like this in the tri-state area since 1997. And at that time, the water was a bit higher than it is right now, but still, the impact is the same.
And well, at that time, you didn't have the riverfront garages. We had a riverfront stadium here. But I want to show you here, over the last, we've been out here 2 hours now, Dan?
Yeah.
This water is receding. This is the sign of hope. So when we first got here, we were walking into water up to this step, and now you can see all of this water starting to push itself back into the fast-moving Ohio River.
Yeah. With all of that said, our coverage from downtown continues throughout the morning here on Fox 19 Now. But for right now, we do send it in to Jessica Brown.
All right, let's give you another live look from the other side of the river in Covington, where the water levels are starting to fall there as well. Still a flooding situation there. The parking lot there completely flooded. We know that. We'll check on Jordan Blinds after the break.